How do we plan for the next year when the future looks like a fog bank? Hi, this is Kevin,
And this is Mark.
and this is Go to the Campus with Crew.
We talk about how to reach students on a public high school campus.
Hey, Mark, what's our topic today, bro?
Today we're talking about thinking past the fog. And specifically, how do we plan for a time that we can't see yet, like the fall? A lot of times our teams right now are in the spring planning for their fall, and yet right now we have no idea what that fall is going to look like. So we just want to address some questions about how do we even start that?
Yeah, it's interesting when, if you're ever driving and you hit a fog bank, what happens? You tend to slow down. And you have to put the lights low, and you got to look at the side of the road because you don't know what's 20 feet ahead of you. And I think for a lot of teams right now, that's sort of how it feels. It seems awkward, first of all, to be even thinking about anything solid for the fall because we don't know how the local governments are going to be instructing us. And so what do you do?
Yeah, it can be paralyzed. And that word paralyzing comes to mind, that you're so ready to go, but you have no idea what it's going to look like, and you just don't do anything. And we just want to help us talk about how can we do something? What can we do to move forward in the middle of this fog?
Yeah. Hey, I think the first thing to think about is to begin with the end in mind. I'm going to step back a second and say that I've been talking to a lot of leaders around the country, and the common denominator seems to be a little ebb in our motivation. When we can't see ahead, it's hard to know just exactly what to do, and so we have slowed down a little bit. And so for everybody at some level, the motivation's a little bit tough. I think one way to get the motivation back is to think about this. Our vision and our mission have not changed one bit.
Right.
And so as we begin to look at what is true right now of our scope, of our mission, of our audience, and those type of things, we can begin to remind ourselves that, hey, even though things are uncertain, the one thing that is true is our North Star has not changed. We're here to reach students for Christ on a public high school campus and middle school, and we're asking God to go ahead of us to open doors to do that.
That's right. And we want to use students to do that. So discipling, evangelism with teenagers, that's our bread and butter. That will not change, whether it's personal, digital, whatever the case may be. That's really good, Kevin. That North Star really helps refocus us. The second thing is to make your best assumptions on where solid ground is going to be. So we might not know where the solid ground is going to be. We don't know what is going to be true of the fall, but make your best assumptions. And I would even say take a couple of contingency plans. What's going to happen? How will we play this out if it's going to be full force, everyone on campus in the fall? How are we going to play this out if it's digital only, no students on the campus? What is our ministry going to look like in that scenario? And maybe a middle ground where there's some working directly with students, but mostly digital. What do those things look like? And though we can't know which path is true, we can go down a little ways on both of those and begin to see a clear path that we can. Especially, I would say, put more time thinking about this digital only. What if we had to kick off our ministry with only digital? What if we had to do evangelism with only digital? What would that look like? What if we had to disciple students with only digital? What would that look like?
Mark, that's so good. I've talked to several leaders this week who specifically said whatever the plan's going to be, they're going to keep social media as part of their plan.
Yes,
because part of it's been so successful.
Yeah.
And so I think that's good. I think as I've been looking at some periodicals and so forth, the companies that are talking right now about being successful through this do have several contingencies depending on what the realities that they're going to face in the fall. So that's really good. Hey, the third one's very simple, and it almost seems like we shouldn't even have it as a point. But that is plan your next steps as if you are out of the fog already. Now, this is tricky because we're not. But as you make these plans, let's believe that there's going to be a point when the fog is going to lift. And then the realities that are set before you, see, there's probably more that can be counted on than not.
That's right.
There will be school, there will be students, there will be opportunities all around us. Let's not try to fabricate something that's not a reality. Regardless of what happens in September, as you said, Mark, if it's going to be by social media, if it's going to be by actually physically present, we will be doing, for instance, team meetings. We will be on campus. we will have an awful lot of things happening that we will do regardless of what the culture is telling us.
Yeah, and I would say this is a point where you pull your team together and you talk about, okay, with these three scenarios, let's get a scaffolding of our ministry, a blueprint of what it looks like going this direction. Let's take a deep breath. Let's do a scaffolding, a blueprint of what this will look like if we're in this direction. This is our reality. And then let's do one more for this middle of the road. As the government and the schools roll out their plans, we will then know which of these paths we're on. But since we've gone ahead and planned as if we're through the fog, through those plans, we're not thrown for a loop. We don't have to wonder. We don't have to gather the team again and say, what do we do? We already know what we're going to do. And because of that, we can move forward much more quickly.
You know, that word scaffolding is key. I think that might have been Mark. You might have hit on something profound, which you
usually you, Kevin.
Yeah. Okay, I'm very humble right now. I think you. But scaffolding is a temporary structure to get you somewhere.
Right.
And so just think about our scaffolding, no matter what the plan is a temporary thing. We can dismantle it at will and go with what God wants us to do as He makes that more clear. So that's great.
That's right. Absolutely. The number 4 is, in the meantime, prepare for that future. So you've got some of your plans ready. Now go. And there's some things that no matter what path you go down, you are going to need to do right now. Prepare leaders, meet leaders, raise up leaders. Who are the students that are going to be leading in the fall? Preparing yourself. What do you need to be doing to get ready for the fall? Gathering prayer leaders. If there's ever a time to have people praying for your campus, this is the time. Not only do we not know exactly what's going to happen, there are a lot of people that are available to pray. So gather people to pray for this campus. Train your leaders, gather your team. Think about how are we going to digitally do evangelism, because regardless of what path you're on, that's something you can be doing. Prepare now for what's going to happen. Don't just wait until the fall, until you know what it is to do it. Start working on those things.
I think that's great. And I think in a period of time where there could be, we're not saying that it is, could be a little extra time in the schedule, our recommendation right now is that you would have part of your staff meeting every week as dreaming and planning for when things are back to somewhat normal. We're not saying it'll ever be the same. However, if you put some time every week into this, you're going to be in much better shape if things do open up, or even if they don't, you're going to be in much better shape to take those first steps.
Yeah. We may be in the fog, but we're not blind. So let's keep moving forward. So let's sum up what we've talked about today. First, we talked about beginning with the end in mind. Our vision and our mission haven't changed. Start with that. The second thing is make your best assumptions on where the solid ground is. The third thing is plan your next steps as if you are out of the fog already. And fourth, we talked about, in the meantime, prepare for that future. Do the things now that need to be done in order for you to be able to get to that future.
Hey, this whole cast has been based upon an assumption, and that is we're in the fog. So what is your next step in moving past that fog?
Yeah, just put your answers to that question in the comments below. We would love to hear from you to know how you're planning to move forward through this fog. Hey, we've got a piece that we're going to recommend to you. It's a blog by a guy named Tim Casteel, and he's a true campus guy who just writes great stuff, and he blogs about things that are really relevant to us. And he wrote a blog recently about what if there's no fall? What does a campus ministry look like without a campus? And it was really good, and I was focused on a collegiate mindset, but has a lot of really applicable things for us. So we're going to put that link in the show notes on the YouTube channel, and we would love for you to check that out. It's a really good read, and it will give you really good thoughts for how to move forward in this. If you like what we're talking about, don't forget to subscribe and join our community. Until next week, this has been Mark
and Kevin
with Go to the Campus. So remember, when in doubt,
go to the campus.
We'll see you next time, guys.